The wind screamed across the Montana plains like a wounded animal, carrying with it snow so thick Cole Whitfield could barely see 3 feet in front of his truck. Christmas Eve had turned vicious. The kind of storm that old-timers talked about for years afterward, the kind that killed cattle, snapped power lines, and reminded humans just how small they were against nature's fury. Cole gripped the steering wheel tighter, his calloused hands steady despite the truck's occasional slide on black ice. He'd lived through 32 winters in these mountains, and he knew better than to be out in weather like this. But the horses in the north pasture needed checking, and Cole Whitfield didn't leave animals to suffer, no matter what the thermometer said. The heater in his old Ford fought a losing battle against the cold seeping through every crack and crevice. Cole's breath misted in the cab despite the vents blasting at full power. He wore his heavy ranch coat, the sheepskin collar turned up against his neck. His Stetson pulled low over dark eyes that had seen too much and trusted too little. His ranch. The Broken Creek stretched across 500 acres of beautiful, unforgiving wilderness. It had been in his family for 3 generations, though Cole was the only Whitfield left to work it now. His father had died 5 years ago, heart-attacked while mending fence. His mother had followed 2 years later, they said of pneumonia, but Cole knew it was really heartbreak. He'd been alone since then. Alone suited him fine. The truck's headlights cut weak. Tunnels through the blizzard as Cole navigated the rutted road toward the northern boundary. He was about to turn toward the pasture gate when something made him pause, a dark shape in the snow that didn't belong. At first he thought it might be a fallen branch or maybe a deer that had succumbed to the cold, but something about it nagged at him. Cole put the truck in park and grabbed his flashlight, stepping out into wind that hit him like a physical blow. The cold stole his breath immediately, burning his lungs and making his eyes water. He pulled his bandana up over his nose and mouth. Squinting against the horizontal snow, the shape was about 20 yards off the road, already half buried in a drift. Probably nothing, Cole muttered to himself. But his boots were already carrying him forward, high-stepping through snow that came almost to his knees, 10 yards away. His flashlight beam caught something that made his heart skip. Blue fabric, denim jeans, a hand pale as marble, fingers curled against the snow. Jesus Christ. Cole closed the distance in seconds, falling to his knees beside what he now clearly saw was a persona, young man. Barely more than a boy, lying face down in the snow. He wore only jeans, sneakers that were soaked through, and a thin hoodie that was no match for Montana winter. Cole rolled him over as gently as his panicked hands would allow. The boy's face was deathly pale, his lips blue, ice crystals clinging to his dark eyelashes. He couldn't have been more than 18 or 19, with delicate features and a slight build that made him look even younger. "Hey, can you hear me?" Cole pressed 2 fingers to the boy's neck, searching for a pulse. For 3 horrible seconds he felt nothing. Then there, faint and slow, but there. "Thank God. Hold on, kid. Just hold on." There was no time to be gentle. Cole scooped the boy up. God. He weighed nothing and stumbled back through the snow, toward his truck. The wind tried to knock them both down, but Cole had carried calves and feed sacks through worse. He kicked the passenger door open and laid the boy across the bench seat, then ran around to the driver's side. The dome light gave Cole his first clear look at what he'd found. The boy was beautiful, even half-frozen delicate cheekbones, a soft mouth, dark hair plastered to his forehead. There was a bruise on his left cheek, ugly and purple, and another on his jaw. His hands were scraped raw, knuckles bloody. Someone had hurt him. Then someone had left him to die. Rage flashed through Cole, hot and sudden, but he pushed it down. Anger could wait. Right now, this boy needed heat and help. In that order, Cole cranked the heat as high as it would go and threw the truck into gear, turning back toward the ranch house. The drive that normally took 15 minutes felt like an hour. He kept glancing over at the boy, watching for any sign of consciousness, any indication that the hypothermia hadn't progressed too far. "Don't you die on me," Cole heard himself say. "Don't you dare die on Christmas Eve in my truck. You hear me?" The boy didn't respond, but Cole kept talking anyway. his voice low and steady, as if his words alone could anchor the kid to life. Name's Cole. Cole Whitfield. You're on my ranch now, the Broken Creek. You're safe. Whatever happened, whoever did this to you, they can't touch you here. You're safe. By the time Cole pulled up to the ranch house, his own heart was hammering against his ribs. He killed the engine and gathered the boy up again, carrying him through the snow to the front porch. The door wasn't locked, never was. This far from town, Cole shouldered it open, tracking snow and urgency across the hardwood floors his mother had once polished every Saturday. The house was warm. Thank God, Cole had left the fire going in the main room, and the old furnace was still doing its job. He carried the boy straight to the bathroom and laid him in the old clawfoot tub, then turned on the shower, adjusting the temperature carefully. Not too hot. He knew that much from ranching. You couldn't warm up hypothermia victims. Too fast, or you'd send them into shock. Lukewarm water streamed down, and Cole began carefully removing the boy's wet clothes. The hoodie was plastered to his skin. The t-shirt underneath was torn. Cole's jaw clenched when he saw more bruises hold his shoulder. The small of his back. Someone had beaten him. Badly. The jeans were harder to remove. Soaked and heavy, but Cole managed, trying to preserve what little modesty he could, even though the boy was unconscious. He averted his eyes as much as possible, focusing on the medical necessities, not the smooth, pale skin, or the vulnerable curve of the boy's hip. Now wasn't the time. Cole grabbed towels from the linen closet and began to dry the boy off, rubbing circulation back into limbs that felt like ice. The water in the tub had turned pink from the blood on the boy's hands and knees. His feet were torn up too, as if he'd been running. Running from what? From whom? After 10 minutes under the gradually warming water, color began to return to the boy's face. His lips lost some of their blue tinge. His breathing, which had been so shallow Cole could barely detect it, deepened slightly. That's it, Cole murmured, wrapping the boy in thick towels. Come on back. You're doing good? He carried him to the guest bedroom, his mother's old sewing room, which Cole had converted years ago for the occasional ranch hand or visiting friend, though visitors were rare these days. He laid the boy on the bed and covered him with every quilt and blanket he could find, then stacked pillows around him to help retain heat. The boy looked impossibly young lying there, lost in the pile of quilts. His face finally relaxed from whatever terror had driven him out into that storm. Cole stood there for a long moment, just watching the steady rise and fall of the boy's chest, making sure it continued. His own hands were shaking. Now adrenaline crescended, he realized he was still wearing his wet coat and boots. Tracking melted snow across his mother's good rug, he needed to call someone. The sheriff, probably. Or the hospital in town. But the phone lines were down. They always went down in storms like this. His cell had no signal this far out. The CB radio might work, but what would he say? That he'd found a boy half frozen on his property on Christmas Eve. They'd want to take him away, ask questions, file reports. Something in Cole's gut told him that would be a mistake. The bruises, the torn clothes, the fact that someone had left this boy to die, it all added up to something dark. Maybe the boy had been running from his rescuers, not toward them. Cole made a decision. He'd wait. At least until the boy woke up and could speak for himself. At least until the storm passed, and Cole could be sure he wouldn't be sending the kid back into danger. It was Christmas Eve anyway. Even God had rested on holy days. Cole changed out of his wet clothes and made coffee, strong and black, then returned to sit in the chair beside the guest bed. The wind howled outside, rattling the old windows. But inside the house was warm and quiet, except for the ticking of his father's old clock on the mantel. Hours passed. Cole dozed off and on, always jerking awake at the slightest sound, checking to make sure the boy was still breathing, still there, still real. It was just past midnight technically, Christmas now, when the boy's eyes finally opened. They were green. The color of spring grass after rain, bright and clear and filled with confusion. Those eyes fixed on Cole, widened, and the boy tried to scramble back, terror flooding his face. Easy, Cole said, holding up both hands. Easy now. You're safe. You're in my house. I found you in the snow. You're safe." The boy stared at him, breathing fast, eyes darting around the room as if looking for exits or weapons or any means of escape. His hands clutched the quilts up to his chin. Wetware's voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. "You're on my ranch. The Broken Creek, about 40 miles outside of Whitefish. I'm Cole. Cole Whitfield. I found you about 4 hours ago, out in the north pasture during the storm. Do you remember anything?" The boy's eyes filled with tears, but he blinked them back furiously. His jaw clenched, that bruise standing out stark purple against his pale skin. "I remember," he whispered. "I remember everything." Cole waited, not pushing, sitting there solid and patient the way he did with skittish horses. After a long moment, the boy spoke again. "They threw me out. My parents. They found out about me and his voice broke. They said I was an abomination. That they'd rather have no son than He couldn't finish, but he didn't need to." Cole understood. The bruises, the abandoned boy, the Christmas Eve timing, it all made horrible sense. "What's your name, son?" Cole kept his voice gentle. "Ethan." The boy Ethan wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "Ethan Ross. I'm 18. I'm not a runaway. I mean, I didn't run. They kicked me out. They drove me out to the middle of nowhere and made me get out of the car." My father said, his voice cracked again. He said if I wasn't going to live right, I didn't deserve to live at all. Rage, white-hot and righteous, flooded through Cole's chest. What kind of monster did that to their own child? What kind of people called themselves Christians and then left a boy to freeze to death on Christmas Eve? But he kept his voice calm, kept his face neutral. "You're safe now. Nobody's going to hurt you here. And come morning, we'll figure out what to do next. But tonight, you're safe. You're warm. And you're not alone. Okay?" Ethan stared at him for a long moment, those green eyes searching Cole's face as if looking for deception or hidden cruelty. Whatever he saw there must have satisfied him, because some of the tension bled out of his shoulders. "Okay," he whispered. "Thank you. Thank you for saving me." Cole nodded once. "Get some rest. I'll be right here if you need anything." He settled back in the chair, and Ethan's eyes drifted closed, exhaustion and trauma pulling him back under. Cole sat there in the dim lamplight, listening to the storm rage outside and the quiet breathing of the broken boy in his guest bed, and wondered what the hell he was supposed to do now. He'd saved the boy's life. That much was done, but Cole had a sinking feeling that was only the beginning. Christmas. Morning arrived with deceptive gentleness. The storm had blown itself out during the night, leaving behind a world transformed everything, blanketed in pristine white. The sky a crystalline blue that hurt to look at. The sun glinting off snow so bright it could blind a man. Cole had been awake for hours, watching the dawn break through the kitchen window while nursing his third cup of coffee. He'd barely slept, every instinct on high alert, listening for sounds from the guest room. Part of him kept expecting Ethan to wake up screaming or crying, or simply gone vanished like he'd been nothing but a fever dream, brought on by too much isolation and Christmas melancholy. But when he checked at sunrise, Ethan was still there, curled on his side under the mountain of quilts, sleeping the deep sleep of the thoroughly exhausted. In the morning light, with his face relaxed and his dark hair falling across the pillow, he looked impossibly young, impossibly fragile. Cole found himself standing in the doorway longer than necessary, just watching the rise and fall of Ethan's breathing, making sure it stayed steady and strong. He forced himself back to the kitchen and started making breakfast. Pancakes, bacon, eggs, comfort food. The kind his mother used to make on Christmas morning when Cole was small and the world still made sense. His hands moved through the familiar motions automatically, muscle memory taking over while his mind spun through possibilities and problems. The phone lines were still down. No cell signal. The roads would be impassable for at least another day. Maybe Tooth of Plows wouldn't make it out to the Broken Creek until they'd cleared the main highways and the town roads. Cole and Ethan were effectively snowed in together, cut off from the world, which gave Cole time to figure things out. Time to help Ethan heal. Time to decide what the hell happened next. He was flipping pancakes when he heard the soft shuffle of feet on hardwood. Cole turned to find Ethan standing in the kitchen doorway, swallowed up in an old flannel shirt and sweatpants that Cole had left folded on the chair beside the bed. The clothes hung on Ethan's slight frame, the sleeves rolled up multiple times. The waistband cinched tight with a belt. "Morning," Cole said, keeping his voice easy and low the way he would with a nervous colt. "How are you feeling?" Ethan's hand rose instinctively to touch the bruise on his jaw, then fell away. "Sore, but alive." His voice was stronger this morning, though still hoarse. "I didn't last night. I wasn't sure if I dreamed you. If any of this was real, it's real." Cole gestured to the table. "Sit down. Food's almost ready. You need to eat." Ethan hesitated in that doorway, and Cole could see the uncertainty in every line of his body, the way he held himself small, ready to bolt or defend, not sure which would be necessary. It broke something in Cole's chest, seeing that kind of learned wariness in someone so young. "I promise the food's edible," Cole added with the ghost of a smile. "I'm no chef, but I can manage breakfast without poisoning anyone." That got a tiny quirk of Ethan's lips knot. Quite a smile, but close. He moved to the table and sat down carefully, as if his ribs hurt. Probably they did. Cole had seen enough injuries to recognize the signs of a good beating. Cole loaded up 2 plates and brought them to the table, along with syrup, butter, and a glass of orange juice for Ethan. "Coffee? Please." Cole poured a mug and set it in front of him, then took his own seat across the table. For a few minutes, they ate in silence. Ethan attacked his food with the single-minded intensity of someone who hadn't eaten in too long. And Cole pretended not to notice, just kept his own pace steady and unthreatening. "When did you eat last?" Cole asked finally. Ethan paused, forked halfway to his mouth. "Yesterday morning, maybe? I'm not. Time got weird." "Bet it did." Cole took a sip of his coffee. "You were in pretty bad shape when I found you. Another hour out there, maybe less. And..." He didn't finish the sentence. They both knew how it would have ended. Ethan set his fork down, his hand starting to tremble. "I thought that was what they wanted. What my father wanted." He kept saying, his voice caught. He kept saying I'd brought shame on the family. That he'd raised me better. That if I was going to choose to be this way, then I was choosing to turn my back on God. On them, on everything decent. Cole asked gently. A bitter laugh escaped Ethan's throat. "My father went through my phone. Found messages between me and another boy from school. Tyler, we weren't even it. Wasn't serious. Just texting, you know? Stupid stuff. But it was enough." He picked up his juice glass, hand shaking so badly some of it sloshed over the rim. "My father went crazy. Started screaming, throwing things. My mother just stood there crying and praying. Then my father," Ethan touched his jaw again, and Cole didn't need him to finish. "They beat you," Cole said flatly. "My father did. My mother just watched." Ethan's voice had gone hollow, distant, as if he were talking about someone else's life. "Then they put me in the car. Drove for maybe an hour? I don't know. Out into the middle of nowhere. Made me get out." My father said, his voice broke completely now, tears spilling down his cheeks. He said if I wanted to live in sin, I could die in it too. That he was washing his hands of me. And then they just drove away. Left me there. Cole's hands clenched into fists under the table, his jaw so tight it ached. It took every ounce of his control not to slam his fist into something. Not to let Ethan see the rage boiling through his veins. Because Ethan didn't need anger right now, even righteous anger. He needed calm, safety, someone to tell him it wasn't his fault. "Ethan," Cole waited until those green eyes met his. "Listen to me. What your parents did, what your father did, that wasn't love. That wasn't discipline or tough love or anything that decent people do. That was attempted murder. You understand that?" Ethan's eyes widened. "They left you to die. On Christmas Eve, in a blizzard. Because of who you love?" Cole's voice was steady but iron-hard. "That's evil. Plain and simple. And none of it, not one goddamn second of it, was your fault. But I know." Cole cut him off. There's no but here. You're 18 years old. You're gay. So what? That's just who you are. It doesn't make you broken or sinful or wrong. It makes you human. And your parents? He took a breath, forced himself to modulate his tone. Your parents are the ones who failed, not you. Ethan was crying openly now, his whole body shaking with silent sobs. Cole stood and moved around the table, crouching down beside Ethan's chair. He didn't touch him. Didn't know if touch would be welcome, but he stayed close, solid, present. You're safe here, Cole said quietly. For as long as you need, we'll figure everything else out later. But right now, you're safe, you're warm, and you're not alone. Okay. Ethan nodded, wiping at his eyes with the oversized sleeve of Cole's flannel shirt. Okay, he whispered. Thank you. I don't know how to thank you. Don't need thanks. Just need you to eat, rest, and heal up. Cole stood, giving Ethan space. Roads are snowed in anyway. We're stuck here together for at least a couple days. Might as well make the best of it. That earned him a watery almost smile. On Christmas? Cole agreed. He glanced at the window, at the winter wonderland outside. Not how either of us planned to spend it, I'm guessing. I didn't have any plans. Ethan's voice was small. We were supposed to have dinner with my grandparents, but I guess that's not happening now. Cole felt another surge of protective anger, but pushed it down. Well, I don't have a fancy dinner planned. But I can throw together something decent. And there's a Charlie Brown Christmas on TV later if the satellite's working. It's tradition. You watch Charlie Brown? There was surprise in Ethan's voice, and something else, a tentative warmth. Every year since I was a kid. Cole shrugged, a little embarrassed. My mom loved it. After she died, I kept watching it. Feels like keeping her close, you know? Understanding flickered across Ethan's face. When did she die? 3 years ago? My dad passed 5 years back. Cole refilled his coffee cup, needing something to do with his hands. So yeah, Christmas has been pretty quiet around here lately. Just me and the horses and whatever cattle. Haven't found a way to break through the fences. You run this whole ranch by yourself? Mostly. I hire on some help during calving season and when it's time to move the herd. But day to day, it's just me. Cole leaned back against the counter, studying Ethan. Color was coming back to his face. The immediate shock and trauma fading into exhaustion and grief. What about you? What were you planning to do after high school? Ethan's face shuddered. I was going to go to college. University of Montana. I got accepted for next fall. Even got some scholarship money. But I guess that's not happening now either. Why not? Because I don't have anywhere to live. I don't have my documents there all at my parents' house. My social security card, my birth certificate, everything. I don't have money. I don't have anything. His voice cracked. I'm nothing. Hey. Cole's voice sharpened. None of that. You're not nothing. You're a survivor. You made it through a hell of a night and you're still here. That takes strength. Ethan looked down at his plate, his jaw working as he fought back more tears. Cole sighed and ran a hand through his hair. Look, we'll figure it out. One step at a time. First, you heal up. Then we worry about the rest. And when the phones are working again, we can. He paused. We can call the police if you want. Report what happened. Fear flashed across Ethan's face. No police. Please. Ethan, they won't believe me? It'll be my word against my parents. And my father, he's a deacon at his church. Everyone in town thinks he's a saint. They'll take his side. They'll say I'm lying or that he couldn't finish. But Cole understood that I'm a confused kid. A troublemaker. That I deserved it. Cole's jaw clenched. He wanted to argue, wanted to insist that the law would protect Ethan, that justice would be served. But he'd lived in small Montana towns long enough to know that Ethan was probably right. In places like this, reputation mattered. And a deacon's word carried a hell of a lot more weight than a gay teenager's. Okay, Cole said finally. No police. Not unless you change your mind. The relief on Ethan's face was palpable. Thank you. They finished breakfast in more comfortable silence. Ethan ate everything on his plate and accepted seconds when Cole offered them. Afterward, Cole showed him around the ranch house, the living room, with its stone fireplace and worn leather furniture, the small library that had been his mother's pride, the mudroom stacked with coats and boots. "There's a bathroom down the hall," Cole said. "Towels are in the closet. Help yourself to whatever you need. And if you want to rest more, that's fine too. You've been through hell." Ethan nodded but didn't move toward the guest room. Instead, he stood in the living room, looking out the big picture window at the snow-covered ranch land, stretching to the mountains beyond. The morning sun made everything glitter like diamonds. "It's beautiful here," Ethan said softly. "Peaceful it is that." Cole moved to stand beside him, not too close, respecting the careful distance Ethan seemed to need. "Lonely sometimes, but beautiful." "Do you?" Ethan hesitated. "Do you ever wish you had someone to share it with?" The question landed heavier than it should have. Cole was quiet for a long moment, watching a hawk circle high above the pasture. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but relationships aren't easy for me. I'm better with animals than humans." "Why?" Cole glanced at him, surprised by the direct question. But Ethan was looking at him with genuine curiosity. Not pity or judgment, just interest. "Animals are honest," Cole said finally. "They don't pretend to be something they're not. They don't lie or manipulate or hurt you just because they can. You treat an animal right, it trusts you. It's simple." "People aren't simple," Ethan said quietly. "No, they're not." They stood there together, watching the glittering landscape, and something shifted in the air between them, some invisible barrier cracking. The beginning of tentative trust. "Cole." Ethan's voice was almost a whisper. "Yeah. Why are you helping me?" "You don't even know me." Cole thought about that. About the boy he'd found dying in the snow, about the bruises and the broken voice, and the way Ethan's parents had thrown him away like garbage, about his own years of loneliness in this big house, the silence that had become normal, the walls he'd built around his heart to keep it from breaking again, because someone needed to, Cole said simply. "And because I know what it's like to be alone." Ethan looked up at him, those green eyes shimmering with unshed tears. And Cole saw something in them that made his chest tighten. Gratitude, yes, but also something deeper. Recognition. As if Ethan saw past the gruff exterior to the lonely man underneath. "Thank you," Ethan whispered. "For being that someone." Cole nodded, not trusting his voice, and turned back to the window. Outside, Christmas morning stretched peaceful and white. The world made new by snow. Inside, something was beginning to thaw. The days after Christmas blurred together in a strange, suspended rhythm that felt outside normal time. The roads stayed impassable. Another storm rolled through on the 27th, dumping another foot of snow on the already buried landscape. Cole told himself it was unfortunate that being snowed in with a traumatized teenager was complicating his normally simple life. But that would have been a lie. The truth was, having Ethan in the house changed something fundamental. The silence that Cole had convinced himself was peaceful suddenly felt like what it actually was: loneliness. In Ethan's presence, tentative and wounded as it was, filled spaces Cole hadn't realized were empty. They fell into an easy routine. Cole woke early, as he always did, and tended the animals breaking ice in water troughs. Throwing hay to the horses, checking on the cattle huddled in the barn. When he came back to the house, stamping snow from his boots, he'd find Ethan in the kitchen making coffee, still drowning in Cole's oversized clothes, his dark hair sticking up in sleep musk directions that Cole found unreasonably endearing. They'd have breakfast together. Cole would read the day-old news on his phone when he could get sporadic signal. Ethan would sketch in a notebook Cole had found buried in his mother's craft supplies. Turned out the kid had real talent. His pencil bringing to life the view from the window, the barn cats, even Cole himself, captured in a few swift, confident lines that somehow caught more truth than any photograph. "You're good at that," Cole had said. Looking over Ethan's shoulder at a drawing of the ranch house half buried in snow, Ethan had ducked his head, a faint blush coloring his cheeks. "It's just something I do. To think, I guess. to process things. Your parents know you can draw like this. The blush faded. Continue deck 30. My father thought it was a waste of time. Said art was for, he'd stopped himself. For what? For people like me? Ethan's voice had gone quiet. He said that about a lot of things. That certain interests, certain ways of being, they were signs. That I should have known what I was becoming. Cole had wanted to say something comforting, something wise, but anger choked the words. So instead, he'd just squeezed Ethan's shoulder, the first real touch he'd initiated, and said, Your father was wrong about a lot of things. Afternoons, they'd watch old movies or play cards. Cole taught Ethan poker and was surprised to discover the kid had a wicked gift for bluffing. Ethan taught Cole about music Cole had never heard, artists, and songs that spoke to experiences. Cole was only beginning to understand. This is Troy Sivan. Ethan explained one afternoon, his phone connected to Cole's ancient Bluetooth speaker. He's gay. Sings about it openly. About love and heartbreak and being young and queer and trying to figure it all out. Cole listened to the lyrics vulnerable and honest. About running away and finding home in another person, and something in his chest constricted. You listen to this a lot? He asked. Ethan nodded, not meeting his eyes. It helps. Knowing I'm not the only one who feels, he gestured vaguely. Like this. Like what? Lost. Different. Wrong. Even though everyone keeps saying I'm not supposed to feel wrong. Ethan's voice cracked slightly. But it's hard to believe that when the people who were supposed to love you no matter what, chose not to. Cole set down the bridle he'd been mending and moved to sit beside Ethan on the couch. Not touching, but close. Present. You're not wrong, Cole said firmly. And you're not alone. Not anymore. Ethan looked at him, those green eyes searching. And Cole saw the exact moment something shifted when gratitude began its slow transformation into something more complicated, more dangerous, more real. It was the 7th night, New Year's Eve. Though neither of them were paying much attention to the date when things changed, they'd had dinner. Venison stew that Cole's mother used to make. With bread Ethan had somehow figured out how to bake using Cole's sparse kitchen supplies. They'd opened a bottle of wine Cole had been saving for no particular occasion and split it between them while watching the fire and talking about nothing and everything. Ethan was more relaxed than Cole had seen him. The wine loosening some of the constant tension he carried in his shoulders. He'd tactually laughed at one of Cole's stories about a particularly stubborn horse. And the sound had gone through Cole like electricity. Can I ask you something? Ethan said eventually, his voice slightly fuzzy from the wine. Sure. Have you ever? Ethan hesitated, staring into his glass. Have you ever been in love? The question caught Cole off guard. He took a sip of his own wine, buying time. Once, long time ago, what happened? Cole was quiet for a long moment, the memories rising like ghosts. Her name was Sarah. We dated in high school, got engaged right after graduation. Everyone expected us to get married, take over the ranch together, have kids, the whole picture. But you didn't, no? Because Cole stopped, realizing he was at a crossroads. He could deflect, change the subject, keep his secrets buried where they'd been for years. Or he could be honest. Could give Ethan the truth he deserved. Because I wasn't in love with her, Cole said quietly. I cared about her. But it wasn't real. Wasn't what it should have been. And she deserved better than that. What would real have felt like? Cole looked at Ethan, at the firelight painting gold across his features, at the vulnerability and hope and fear all mixed together in those green eyes. Like I couldn't breathe when they were in the room. Cole heard himself say, like every word mattered. Like I'd do anything, give up anything just to see them smile. Did you ever feel that way? About anyone? The question hung in the air between them, heavy with implications neither of them were quite ready to name. Yeah, Cole said finally. Once, what happened? Nothing. Because I was too scared to do anything about it. Ethan set his wine glass down, his hands trembling slightly. Were they? Was it a man? Cole's heart hammered against his ribs. This was it. The moment of truth. He could lie, deflect, protect himself behind walls built over decades of caution and fear, or he could be brave. Could show Ethan that he wasn't alone in this. Yeah, Cole said, his voice rough. It was... The silence that followed felt infinite. Cole couldn't look at Ethan, couldn't bear to see disgust or pity or any of the reactions he'd spent years avoiding. So he stared into the fire and waited for the rejection, the judgment, the Cole. Ethan's voice was soft. Look at me. Cole forced himself to turn, to meet those green eyes, and what he saw there stole his breath. Not disgust. Not pity, understanding, recognition, and something else. Something warm and tentative and achingly hopeful. You're like me? I don't know what I am, Cole admitted. I've spent so long not thinking about it, not letting myself. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated with his own inability to articulate feelings he'd buried for years. After Sarah, I just threw myself into the ranch. Told myself I was better off alone. That it was simpler that way, were you right? I thought I was. But then, Cole stopped himself. But then what? But then I found you dying in the snow and everything changed. Cole couldn't say it. Couldn't voice the truth that had been growing clearer with every day Ethan spent under his roof. Every shared meal, every quiet conversation. Because Ethan was 18 and traumatized and vulnerable, and Cole was 32 and the man who'd saved him. And there were power dynamics and ethical lines that couldn't be crossed no matter what Cole's traitorous heart was starting to feel. But then I realized maybe simple isn't the same as good, Cole said. Instead, Ethan moved closer, closing some of the careful distance they'd been maintaining. His knee brushed against Cole's, a point of contact that felt electric. I don't want simple, Ethan said quietly. Simple is what my parents wanted. A simple son who fit into their simple box with their simple rules. But I'm not simple. He laughed, a broken sound. I'm a mess. I'm scared all the time. I don't know what I'm doing, or where I'm going, or who I'm supposed to be. But I know his voice dropped to almost a whisper. I know I feel safe with you. I know you make me feel like maybe I'm not as broken as I thought. Ethan Cole's voice was strained. You need to be careful. About what you're saying. About what? About the fact that I can't stop thinking about you? Ethan's eyes were bright, intense, fixed on Cole's face. About the fact that when you come in from the cold, all I want is to be the one who warms you up. About the fact that I've been trying for days to convince myself that what I'm feeling is just gratitude. It's just relief at being saved, but it's not. It's stop. Cole's voice came out harsher than he intended. He stood up, putting distance between them, his heart racing. You can't, we can't, why not? Ethan stood too, and there was challenge in his voice now, alongside the hurt. Because I'm too young? Because I'm damaged? Because you saved me and that makes it wrong somehow? Yes, all of that. Cole spun to face him. Ethan, you're 18. You just went through hell. Your parents tried to kill you. You're grieving, you're traumatized, and I'm gestured helplessly. I'm the first person who showed you kindness. But that doesn't mean what I feel is real? Ethan's voice shook. Don't do that. Don't dismiss what I'm feeling just because it's inconvenient or complicated or scary. I'm not dismissing it. I'm protecting you. From what? From yourself? Ethan closed the distance between them, and Cole found himself frozen. Unable to step back even though every rational thought screamed that he should. Cole, I know the difference between gratitude and this. I know I'm young, but I'm not a child. And I know what I feel. What do you feel? The question escaped before Cole could stop it. Ethan reached up, his hand trembling as it touched Cole's face, fingers gentle against the rough stubble of his jaw. Safe, seen, like for the first time in my life. Someone looks at me and doesn't see something that needs to be fixed or changed or hidden away. You look at me like I'm his voice cracked, like I'm enough. Just as I am. Cole's hand came up to cover Ethan's where it rested against his face, and he saw tears gleaming in those green eyes. We're enough, Cole said roughly. You're more than enough. But Ethan, I'm 14 years older than you. I'm so what? Ethan's other hand came up to frame Cole's face. And they were so close now, Cole could feel his breath, could see the gold flecks in his green eyes. Age is just a number. You've shown me more kindness, more respect, more humanity in a week than my parents showed me in 18 years. You've never made me feel small or wrong or shameful. You've just a tear spilled down his cheek. You've just been here, solid and safe and real. And if that's wrong, then I don't want to be right. Ethan, Cole's voice was barely a whisper. If we fifth this, there's no going back from it. We cross this line, and everything changes. Good, Ethan whispered back. I want everything to change. He hesitated, then pushed forward with the courage that had kept him alive through that Christmas Eve storm. I want you. Cole's control, already stretched thin, snapped. He closed the distance between them, his hands coming up to cup Ethan's face, and he kissed him. It was gentle at first, careful, almost reverent. Painfully aware of Ethan's bruised mouth and battered body, but Ethan made a soft sound and pressed closer, his hands fisting in Cole's shirt, and the kiss deepened, became something raw and desperate and real. Cole tasted wine and salt from tears, and something indefinably Ethan. And it was like coming home to a place he'd never been but had been searching for his entire life. Ethan kissed like he was drowning, and Cole was air. Like he was trying to pour every ounce of feeling into this one point of contact. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ethan's eyes were bright with tears and joy and wonder. Tell me this is real, Ethan whispered. Tell me I'm not imagining it. Cole pressed his forehead to Ethan's, his hands still cradling his face like he was something precious and breakable and infinitely valuable. It's real, Cole said. God help us both, but it's real, Ethan laughed, the sound breaking into a sob, and Cole pulled him close, wrapping him in arms that promised safety and acceptance and home. Outside, midnight struck, the new year arriving while inside the ranch house. Two damaged souls found healing in each other. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't simple. But it was real, and right now, it's enough. The first week of January brought a thaw-knot just to the Montana landscape, but to something deeper within the walls of the Broken Creek Ranch. The snow began its slow retreat, revealing dead grass and frozen earth beneath. The roads were passable again. The phone lines came back up. The world, which had felt suspended in ice and isolation, started moving forward. Cole knew it meant decisions would have to be made. Plans would have to form. But for a few stolen days, he and Ethan existed in a bubble of their own making, learning each other in ways that felt both brand new and ancient as time. They were careful at first, almost painfully so. That first kiss on New Year's Eve had broken something open, but both of them were terrified of moving too fast, of breaking the fragile trust they'd built. So they held hands while watching movies. They fell asleep on the couch together, Ethan's head on Cole's shoulder, Cole's arm wrapped protective around him. They kissed gentle, exploratory kisses that spoke of possibility rather than demand. Ethan had confessed one night, his face buried against Cole's neck. I kissed Tyler once behind the school, but it was nothing like this. Nothing that felt what? Cole had prompted gently. Right, like coming home. Cole had tightened his arms around Ethan, his heart too full for words. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. Ethan spoke about his dreams of college, of studying art therapy, of maybe helping other kids like him who felt lost and broken. Cole talked about the ranch, about his parents, about the loneliness he'd carried so long he'd forgotten it wasn't normal. Why didn't you ever, Ethan had asked one afternoon while they were mending fence in the winter sunshine. After Sarah, why didn't you try to find someone else? Cole had hammered another nail before answering. Fear, mostly. This is a small community. Conservative. If people knew I was, he'd struggled for the word. If they knew, it would change everything. The way they looked at me, the way they did business with me. And I convinced myself that the ranch was enough. That being alone was easier than risking that. You still afraid? Cole had looked at Ethan, his wind-flushed cheeks and bright eyes, at the way he'd filled out in the past week with regular meals and safety, at the smile that came more easily now. Terrified, Cole had admitted. But for the first time, I'm more afraid of losing this than I am of what people might think. The smile Ethan had given him could have melted the remaining snow. But reality, as it always does, came calling. It was January 8th, when Cole's phone rang with an unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Telemarketers and spam calls were constant, but something made him pick up. "Is this Cole Whitfield?" A woman's voice, professional and careful. "Speaking, Mr. Whitfield. This is Detective Sarah Morrison with the Whitefish Police Department. I'm calling about a missing persons case, an 18-year-old named Ethan Ross, who was reported missing on Christmas Eve by his parents," Cole finished, his gut clenching. Across the room, Ethan looked up from his sketchbook, sensing trouble. "Yes, his parents reported him as a runaway. We've been searching, and your property is within the search radius. Have you seen anyone unusual in the past 2 weeks?" Cole's mind raced. He could lie, say no, send them searching elsewhere. But that would only buy time, not solve anything. And Ethan deserved better than to spend his life looking over his shoulder. "Detective Morrison," Cole said carefully, "Ethan Ross is here. He's safe. But before you send anyone out, you need to know that he didn't run away. He was abandoned. Deliberately. In a blizzard. To die." The silence on the other end stretched long. When the detective spoke again, her voice had changed, sharper, more focused. "Can you repeat that?" "Ethan's parents found out he was gay. They beat him, drove him out into the wilderness during the Christmas Eve storm, and left him there. I found him half frozen on my property. If I hadn't, he'd be dead, and his parents know that. They're meant for that to happen. These are serious allegations, Mr. Whitfield. They're the truth. Ethan has bruises, injuries consistent with assault, and he'll tell you the same thing I'm telling you." Another pause. "I need to speak with him, and I need to come out there today." "Fine. But detective, Ethan is terrified of being sent back to his parents. If that's going to happen, you need to tell me now so I can." He stopped, not sure how to finish that sentence. "So I can what? Hide him, run?" "Mr. Whitfield, if what you're saying is true, Ethan won't be going back to his parents. But I do need to hear his story, and we'll need to involve Child Protective Services. He's 18. He's not a child. In Montana, 18 is still considered a youth in need of services in certain situations." But her voice softened slightly. "I'm on your side here, Mr. Whitfield. If Ethan was abandoned, if he was abused, we'll handle it appropriately. I promise you that." Cole ended the call and looked at Ethan, who had gone pale. "They're coming," Ethan said flatly. "They're going to take me back." "No." Cole crossed the room and took Ethan's hands in his. "No, they're not. But you're going to have to tell your story. Everything that happened, and it's going to be hard." Ethan's voice shook. "Will you be there? When I tell them? Every second. I'm not going anywhere." Detective Morrison arrived 3 hours later with a social worker named Patricia Chen. They were both women. Both professional but kind. And Cole found himself grudgingly grateful that Ethan wouldn't have to face a panel of men who might not understand. They sat in Cole's living room, Ethan on the couch with Cole beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. Ethan told his story haltingly at first, then with increasing strength as the detective and social worker listened without judgment, only asking gentle, clarifying questions. He told them about the phone, the messages, his father's rage, about the beating, the drive into the wilderness, the words his father had spoken, about lying in the snow, convinced he was going to die, accepting it because some broken part of him believed his father was right. "And then Cole found me," Ethan finished, his hand finding Cole's and gripping tight. "He saved my life. He's kept me safe. His voice cracked. "He's shown me what it looks like when someone actually cares about you. Not because you fit some mold or live up to some expectation, but just because." Detective Morrison had been taking notes throughout. Now she set down her pen and looked at Ethan with something like fury and sorrow mixed together. "What your parents did constitutes abandonment, child endangerment, and possibly attempted manslaughter. They will be arrested and charged. You will not be going back to them. Do you understand? Ethan nodded, tears streaming down his face. What happens now? Cole asked. Patricia Chen spoke up. Normally we'd place Ethan in foster care or a group home while the case is processed. But given that he's 18, legally an adult, and given the circumstances, she looked between Cole and Ethan, and Cole could see her putting pieces together. If Ethan has somewhere safe to stay, somewhere he wants to be, we can arrange for transitional living support instead. He has somewhere, Cole said firmly. Here, for as long as he wants. Mr. Whitfield, I have to ask, what is the nature of your relationship with Ethan? Cole felt Ethan tense beside him, felt the old fear rising, the instinct to lie, to protect himself, to hide, but he looked at Ethan, at the trust and hope in those green eyes, and he made a choice. I care about him, Cole said simply, more than I've cared about anyone in a very long time, and whatever that becomes, whatever we are to each other, it's based on respect and consent, and he struggled for the words. And the kind of honesty I should have been brave enough to live with a long time ago. Patricia Chen studied them both, and Cole could see her evaluating, considering. Finally, she nodded. Double quotes. Ethan, is this what you want? To stay here? Yes. No hesitation. Yes, this is what I want, and that's what we'll arrange. We'll need to schedule follow-up visits, and you'll need to meet with a counselor. Trauma processing is important, but you can stay here. She looked at Cole. Mr. Whitfield, you understand that you'll be under scrutiny? That because of the age difference and the circumstances, people will watch this situation closely. Let them watch, Cole said. I've got nothing to hide. Not anymore. Asterisk. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Ethan's parents were arrested, his father charged with attempted manslaughter, his mother with child endangerment. The case made regional news. And suddenly the Broken Creek Ranch was under a spotlight Cole had never wanted, but something unexpected happened. The community that Cole had been so afraid would reject him instead rallied around them. Neighbors brought casseroles and offers of help. Other ranchers stopped by to shake Cole's hand and tell him he'd done right. The owner of the feed store in town pulled Cole aside one day and said, "My nephew's gay. Lives in Seattle now because he didn't feel safe here. But maybe if there were more folks like you willing to stand up, that could change." Even the pastor from Cole's mother's old church reached out not to condemn but to offer support. Jesus said to love your neighbor as yourself, the pastor said simply. He didn't add any conditions to that. What you did saving that boy, giving him a home, that's the gospel in action. Cole, who'd spent decades convinced that authenticity would cost him everything, found himself building bridges instead of burning them. Ethan bloomed like a plant finally given proper light. He enrolled in online classes to finish his GED. He got a job at the local coffee shop, saving money for college. He sketched and painted and slowly started to heal from wounds both physical and emotional. And he and Cole learned each other how to love carefully and honestly. How to navigate a relationship that had started in crisis and was growing into something real and lasting. Are you happy? Cole asked him one night in late February. They were lying in Cole's bed now, not the guest room, Ethan's head on Cole's chest, both of them warm and content in the darkness. I didn't think I could be, Ethan admitted. After everything that happened, I thought maybe I was too broken. That happiness wasn't something I deserved anymore. Now, Ethan propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at Cole with those green eyes that no longer held quite so much fear. Now I think maybe broken is just another word for human. We're all damaged in some way. The question isn't whether we're broken, it's whether we're brave enough to let someone see the cracks and love us anyway. Cole reached up to cup Ethan's face, his thumb brushing across his cheekbone. You're brave. You know that? Braver than I've ever been. You're brave too, Ethan said softly. You opened your home, your heart, your whole life to a stranger. You stood up to scrutiny and judgment and fear. You chose love over safety. That's the bravest thing I can imagine. Cole pulled him down into a kiss, deep and slow, and full of promise. When they broke apart, both breathing harder, Ethan smiled. I love you, he said. Simple, True. No hesitation. Cole's heart clenched with joy, with fear, with overwhelming gratitude for the storm that had brought this man into his life. I love you too, Cole said. More than I knew I could love anyone. Spring came to Montana in a rush of green and growth. The ranch came alive with new calves and blooming wildflowers. Ethan planted a garden, herbs and vegetables and flowers, bringing color to the space around the ranch house. On a warm April afternoon, Cole found Ethan sitting on the porch, his sketchbook in his lap. Looking out at the mountains with a peaceful expression, Cole settled beside him, their shoulders touching in comfortable familiarity. "What are you drawing?" "Home," Ethan said simply, showing Cole a sketch of the ranch house, the barn, the mountains beyond. "This place, us, is that what this is?" Cole asked softly. "Home." Ethan set down his sketchbook and took Cole's hand, lacing their fingers together. "Yeah," he said. "For the first time in my life, I know exactly where home is. It's not a place or a building. It's not blood or obligation or meeting someone else's expectations." He looked at Cole, his eyes bright and clear and full of certainty. "Home is wherever you are. Home is this is what we've built together." Cole brought their joined hands to his lips, kissing Ethan's knuckles gently. "Then welcome home," he said. "For as long as you want to stay." "Forever sounds good to me," Ethan said with a smile that made Cole's heart sing. And there, on the porch of the Broken Creek Ranch, with spring blooming around them and the future stretching bright and unknown ahead, two men who'd been lost found everything they'd been searching for. They found acceptance. They found courage. They found home. But most of all, they found love, the kind that saves. The kind that heals. The kind that reminds us all that we're never as broken as we think. And isn't that the greatest miracle of all?